Some moments in history are like quiet thunder. They don't arrive with some huge cannon blast, but with a whispered vow in a quiet room. And we're about to explore one of those moments. A secret royal wedding that didn't just unite two people. Oh no. It triggered a political and religious earthquake that would literally tear a kingdom from its ancient faith and set it on a path the world had never seen before.
To really get our heads around that earthquake, we have to go back to the very first tremor. We're talking about a clandestine ceremony totally hidden from the world that was about to shake the foundations of an entire kingdom.
Okay, so picture this. It's January 25th, 1533. The sun hasn't even come up over London yet. A tiny group of people gathers in a private chamber in Whitehall Palace. There's the formidable King Henry VIII, and with him, the woman he has been chasing for 7 long years, Anne Boleyn. A chaplain and just a few trusted friends are the only ones there to witness a vow that is going to change, well, everything.
I mean, the level of secrecy here is just astounding. This wasn't just a private wedding, it was a full-blown state secret. Think about it. Even the highest religious figure in the entire country, the Archbishop of Canterbury himself, was kept completely in the dark for 2 whole weeks. And the reason for all this cloak and dagger stuff? Well, in the eyes of the law and the entire Catholic world, King Henry VIII was still very much married to his first wife, Catherine of Aragon.
And that brings us to the big question, right? How on earth could a king's personal life, his burning desire to marry this one woman, unleash such massive, monumental forces? To figure that out, we have to rewind a bit and understand a crisis that had been brewing for years.
This crisis was so huge, it actually had its own name, the King's Great Matter. And it was this tangled mess of royal succession, international politics, and, the very soul of the kingdom.
For nearly a quarter of a century, Henry had been married to Catherine of Aragon. And look, she had given him a daughter, Mary. But after years and years of tragic miscarriages and stillbirths, one brutal fact was just staring him in the face. There was no male heir to secure the Tudor dynasty. And for his family, who had a relatively new claim to the English throne, that was a disaster. His obsession with having a son, now all mixed up with his infatuation for the captivating Anne Boleyn, pushed him to find a radical solution. So here's a really crucial point. Henry wasn't looking for a divorce as we think of it. In the Catholic faith back then, that was pretty much impossible. No, he was arguing for an annulment. His whole case was based on this idea that his marriage to Catherine, who was his brother's widow, was forbidden by the Bible, and that the Pope should never have allowed it in the first place. So in his mind, their union had been invalid from day one. He wanted to just erase it.
But there was a colossal problem. Pope Clement VII couldn't just say yes. And why not? Politics. Catherine's nephew just happened to be the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V, the most powerful ruler in all of Europe. His armies had literally just sacked Rome and were basically holding the Pope captive. So, for the Pope to grant Henry's annulment, that would mean declaring the Emperor's aunt a royal mistress and their child illegitimate. No way. The Pope was completely and totally paralyzed.
So for years, there was this diplomatic deadlock. Henry was stuck, his kingdom's future was totally up in the air. But then, one single event changed the entire equation and forced the king to finally make his move.
And there it is. That was the turning point. Anne was pregnant. Suddenly, this wasn't just about Henry wanting a new wife anymore. It was a race against time. If this child, and he was absolutely convinced it would be a boy, was the long-awaited son, he had to be born legitimate. He had to be the undisputed heir to the throne of England. This pregnancy forced him into a desperate gamble. Henry realized he just couldn't wait for Rome's permission. He had to act first. So the plan was marry Anne, secure the legitimacy of his unborn child, and then figure out how to create the legal and religious framework to justify it all later. He was literally betting his crown, his soul, and the future of his kingdom on this.
So with that secret vow spoken, Henry moved with absolutely astonishing speed to turn his private defiance into public fact. The kingdom was about to see a transformation that was both rapid and radical. Seriously, the speed of these events was just breathtaking. In only 5 months, Henry's new, hand-picked Archbishop of Canterbury officially erased a 24-year marriage, validated a new one, and crowned a new queen. Anne Boleyn's coronation on June 1st was this magnificent spectacle, designed to cement her status. But despite all the pageantry, the people of England were not going to be won over that easily. Okay, so the marriage was public, the queen was crowned, but one final, truly earth-shattering step remained:
to sever the 1,000-year-old spiritual bond between England and the Catholic Church.
And it all came down to this one thing: the Act of Supremacy. Passed in 1534, this piece of legislation formally declared that the Pope had zero authority in England. From now on, the king, and only the king, was the supreme head of the Church of England. With just one stroke of a pen, Henry VIII became the master of both the English state and the English soul.
And let me tell you, this act had teeth. The oath of supremacy forced every single person in a position of power to accept this new reality. And if you refused, that was treason, and the punishment for treason was death. Great men, like Henry's own former chancellor, Sir Thomas More, chose their conscience over their king, and they paid for it with their lives. This was no mere political shuffle, this was a deadly serious revolution.
So, what was the ultimate result of that secret vow, taken in the pre-dawn darkness? It was nothing less than the complete remaking of a nation, an event whose aftershocks we can still feel today.
This quote from historian David Starkey just captures the seismic shift perfectly, doesn't it? The events that were sparked by Henry's quest for Anne and a male heir, they set England on this totally unique and honestly often isolated course. It was the birth of the Church of England, the beginning of English Protestantism, and you could even argue it's the very origin of a national identity defined by its separation from mainland Europe. And that leaves us with this one final thought: a secret wedding, driven by this crazy mix of passion, piety, and politics, ended up completely redefining a country's relationship with God and with the rest of the world. The question for us is, which of these forces was the true architect of modern England? Now that's something to ponder.